Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, a tour of Sequence version 7.10, Business and IT in Harmony. We have a great webinar for you today. I'm Ellie Stutz, the Head of Knowledge and Collaboration for PNMsoft, and with me today is Vicky Sharani, who is our Quality Assurance Manager. Hi Vicky.
Hi everyone, hi Eddie.
So we have an amazing webinar for you today. We're going to be giving you a great tour of the new features in Sequence version 7.10. We have a lot of wonderful new features, especially a feature called Dual View. We're going to put great focus on that feature today because using Dual View, you can achieve harmony between business and IT people who are building BPM applications together. So I would say about half of the webinar we're going to devote to Dual View and how to use it. And the other half we're going to devote to other great features which we've added in Sequence version 7.10, like workflow stages, process owner, generate documentation, and form viewer web part. So stay tuned for a really great webinar, and we're very happy to have you with us today. I'd also like to mention that you can at any time enter questions that you have for us into the GoToWebinar questions widget, and we will take a look at your questions and we will try to answer them towards the end of the webinar. So at PNMsoft, we've devoted a lot of thought to how people work together on BPM projects. And there are a lot of different roles in a BPM project, but you can kind of, in a very, I would say, simple way, divide the roles up into two major types of roles. One falls under the umbrella of IT, and the other falls under the umbrella of business. So IT could be developers, business could be business analysts, and so on. And both of these types of people have the same goal. They're both interested in the success of their organization, but they come at that goal from very different angles, and they're essentially coming from two different kinds of worlds. Business people tend to be concerned with things like high-level results. They tend to ask questions like, what do we get out of it? What's the end result? What's the goal that we're looking to achieve? IT people tend to be concerned more with how you get to that goal. What's the functionality of the solution? What's the architecture? How can I make things work better? So because the two sides these two roles come at the goal from different angles, they are often they're sometimes very at odds, and you can kind of get that feeling from the little caricature you can see in front, where both sides are tugging at the project, at the BPM project, from two ends, and sometimes things fall into that middle there, into that gap, and sometimes things get lost. And there certainly can be a certain amount of conflict. So we thought about that problem, and we thought about what causes that problem. So part of what causes that problem is, as you can see now, this Venn diagram, where the two worlds are mostly not overlapping. Okay, the business people can be more focused on things like modeling in Visio, business objectives, BPMN, high-level design, whereas the IT people can be more focused on the development in Visual Studio, for example, classic BPM software, functional design, IT constraints, and so on. And the point of meeting between the two people is often very slim. It can be maybe just in infrequent meetings, maybe in phone calls, maybe in emails. But because that kind of point of meeting in the middle is so slim, there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong, for intentions on the business side to get lost on their way to the IT side, for feedback from the IT side about what can actually be done to get lost on the way back to the business side. And the potential for confusion is very high. So this is actually what a classic BPM project might look like in that old kind of classic work style between business and IT. So on the left you see me, let's say, as a business analyst. On the right, let's say you see Vicky as an IT developer. So the business analyst might drop a high-level requirement document, maybe design a BPM application in Visio, send that over by email to the IT person, who then would maybe remodel that in a BPM suite with maybe small differences, just because the modeling interface isn't exactly the same. Send maybe a screenshot of that back to the business person, who then creates a high-level design and wireframes, who sends that by email to the IT person, who then begins to build the application, There's maybe a phone call here or two in the middle. The IT person sends screenshots of what they're building. The business analyst sends comments by email, confirms by phone. IT might try to implement them, maybe improvise here and there if things aren't so possible. And finally, the IT shares a test version with the business analyst. So far, so good. Now here's where the business analyst gets frustrated because the test really doesn't match the initial requirements that he thought up of, or that she thought up of originally. So it's kind of this ping pong between the business and IT, where they don't really have any kind of unified area where they can really work together. And this kind of ping pong and that gap creates the confusion and the frustration. So we thought a lot about it at PNMsoft, and we created a new feature called Dual View. And Dual View it's more than just a feature. I would call it a module, which we introduced into Sequence version 7.10. And this is a module which enables IT and business people to work together in the same interface on BPM applications. So they can do both the business modeling and the application design in a single interface. So it's a single interface for business modeling and IT design. They're both working on it at the same time. So in this new interface of Dual View, we have harmony. And the flow of work might look more like this. Instead of emails and phone calls, we changed the mode of work to workshops. Okay, IT and business get together in the same room for a few hours, and they work together to model the application. Business analysts can model it in a business view, which we'll see in a second. IT can give feedback. IT can start building the application. Of course, we recommend to use Scrum. Another workshop can take place. IT can show the progress. Business can add comments in the same interface. Business can add steps to the model. IT can build out more steps. A third workshop takes place. IT shows more progress, runs a prototype. The business analyst gives comments, and IT makes fixes all together in the same room. And IT and business analysts meet finally to review the fixes and improvements. And then phase one of the application is ready in a short amount of time. So that's the model of work. It's a more interactive model of workshops. And as you'll see in a second, it's work in the same interface. So right now, actually, we're going to show you how it looks. We're going to show you a demo of Dual View and all of its capabilities. They're just listed here, and you'll see them in the minutes to come. So just bear with me for a moment, and we will get to that demo in a second. So to start off with, let's take a look at an example of a process that already uses Dual View. Right now, we're looking at the flow time interface. That's the interface where end users run BPM applications in Sequence. And an end user is going to now kick off a process, which is a service request, like the kind we talked about earlier. This is a very kind of standard kind of process where the first user completes a form. This could be a customer service agent filling out the contact details and service request details of a particular customer. And I'm not going to fill out the whole form, but just so you can get the idea. These are great looking forms which are designed in Sequence. And then the service request goes off to the service management team, which then sees the request details and can add action items, can fetch the task. So again, I'm not going to go through the whole process, but you basically get the idea here of a mission critical business process which is being used by a customer service team. Okay, and we'll just fill in this, and then we'll take a look at the back end right now. Okay, so this process continues throughout the organization, and so on and so forth. So what does this look like behind the scenes? In Sequence's App Studio, now this is obviously the design interface, this is what the process looks like. Now it's a complex process, there are a lot of steps, a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but now that we look at it, it actually looks very simple. That's because we're looking at the business view. This process has been built using Dual View, and this is the view that the business user, let's say a business analyst, uses in order to model the process. So he's simply just added just a few containers. Each of these is a container onto the App Studio canvas, and this represents for him the entire model of the process. He's added some swim lanes to make the process more orderly and understandable, and a condition, but altogether a very, very simplified high-level design of the process. Now, when it comes time for the developer to develop this process, he simply has to double-click and drill down into each of these steps. Here we've drilled down into the first high-level step, the submit request, and here's where the IT developer actually builds the process, adding activities like a form for submitting the request, which could be really a great enriched or a rich form with a good user experience using Sequence's UX Studio, setting parameters, adding conditions, and so on and so forth. All this represented, if I go back and using the breadcrumbs here to the business view, all this represented by one container for the business analyst, because the business analyst simply doesn't need to see this level of detail, okay? And at the same time, the IT developer has a great high-level view. He knows he's being guided by the business analyst to know exactly the kind of high-level steps that the process needs to be going through in order to reach its completion. And here's just another drill down through another of these steps. And right now, so this is already a process that has been built using dual view. Right now, Vicky is going to show you feature by feature how dual view works from the bottom up. So let's take a look at that.
Thanks, Ellie. So now I'm a business analyst and I'm modeling the workflow. This is the workflow that I'm working on. And now I want to add a new step. For example, between the new opportunity and get the gather requirements. So what I will do, I will go and add a new container from the BPMN section. Also, I can add this container from here, from the add container, for the ones that don't work with the BPMN. I will connect it. And I will call it, this step will be credit check. That's it. My part from the business analyst side is ended for now. Now I'm a developer. I will open this workflow. I will see a new step here, a new container. I can drill down inside the credit check, and now I will see the design view. Here, I will add all the activities that I need for this step. So the first one will be some task that I want. I will call it finance details. I will also add a web service consumer to gather some information that I need. And let's call it BDI check. Sorry. And the last one, I will add a notification, a message, and I will call it BDI results. Of course, that after this, I will need to define each activity. But for now, for this step, I finished. I can see here in the breadcrumbs exactly the step that I'm in. I can go back to the design view, and I will see my container, my step. Also, I would like to add here from the diagram tools a comment next to the new step that I added. And I will just want that everyone to know, please connect to BDI system. And also I have a label here that I want just to place it here next to this link. And that's it. I have an option to choose the view that I want to work on, the options that I want to see. So if I am a business analyst, I can choose a basic view, and then I will see here in the activities, only the activities that are relevant for my work, and I will see all the diagram tools that I can use to model my process. If I'm a developer, I can choose an advanced view, and then I will see more activities because I will use them to design the workflow. And of course, I can just customize my view and to choose whatever I need to work. Those definitions are per user, so it will be saved to the relevant user. And if I will choose here, for example, a basic view, you can see that all the activities here on the left side are the ones that are relevant for the business user, and he can work with them. The dual view supports multiple levels of containers. So in my example, I want to take the notify sales and to put it inside the risk analysis step because it's really part of that step. So I can just go here, right click, cut, double click inside this container and paste it here. Simply as that. Then I can go back. I will see that I'm no longer connected to the end. And I changed my view. Another great thing that I can do, I can copy paste activities between workflows. I can just take one activity or more, mark it, and just copy and paste it in another workflow if I need so. The dual view is very flexible. For example, let's say you have an existing workflow. Can you change it to work with dual view? So the answer is yes. So let's see how you can do it. So now I will open another workflow that I'm working on. This is an existing workflow that works in the standard way. Now I want to start working with the dual view. So let's focus on the steps here. I have here 3 activities that I actually want to modify it to be inside a container. So how can I do it? I just add a new container. I will place it in the right swim lane. Now I can mark the activities and links that I need. I can cut it or use with Control X. I will drill down inside the container, just paste it here. And all the activities and the links are copied inside the container. I will connect it here. If I want to add something, of course, that I can add or change anything, no problem. I will go back and I can also connect the activity to a container and give it the right name. And this is my new workflow. Now my workflow is started to work with the dual view, and I can obviously continue to model my old workflow and to change it to work with the dual view and to add containers, or just to leave it that way.
And what's great about Sequence, Vicky, is that you can work in different modes. So the first example we showed, we were working just with dual view. This here is an example where we're converting a workflow to dual view, but you could actually have a workflow that has some activities that are on the canvas, that, the first canvas you see, and some containers. So essentially, you're working in a kind of mixed mode that has real activities with functionality and containers, which are just containers for more activities inside them. And finally, if you want to, you don't have to use dual view. You could continue to create workflows in 7.10 that don't have containers, that simply have regular activities as you built in previous sequence versions. So the point is that dual view now adds so much more flexibility for business and IT users to work together, to work in mixed mode, and to continue working as they've done in the past.
Okay, so we've seen dual views capabilities. We went through them just now. And let's talk about some best practices for working with dual view. Now, I said earlier that IT and business people should work in workshops. And that's very true with dual view. Dual view does not replace working together live in the same place. We highly recommend that you use dual view, but you also actually come together and sit in the same room and model and design application together. It doesn't have to be throughout the entire span of the development, but certainly there should be several workshops along the way that make sure that, that you're on the same page. So it doesn't replace that human interaction. I would say it augments or it enhances the human interaction. The second piece of advice is that if you already have processes that are running not using dual view and you'd like to convert them into dual view processes, you can definitely do so. And we recommend that you work with versions in that case, that you design, that you add dual view, you add those containers and the modeling to an offline process, a new version. And then when it's ready, you can make that process online. We also highly recommend to use the diagram tools that Vicky showed, like the swim lanes, comments, and labels, to mark up your diagram in order to communicate better the needs and the requirements between the different parties, between the business and the IT. So make use of those diagram tools. And also make use of the options, the view options menu that we showed, that Vicky showed, to show and hide elements in the App Studio for your role, so that you see only the elements that you really need to see. For example, the business should just be seeing the activities that he really needs to add, such as the BPMN activities, perhaps the human activities as well, and that IT could see the elements that he needs to see in the App Studio, maybe more of the activities, and so on. So those are just some best practices that we recommend when using dual view. And I wanted to mention, just on the topic of BPMN, many business analysts like to use BPMN standard notation for business process modeling, and those who do favor using BPMN can do so now in dual view. Those activities are there and available for the modeling in dual view, as you can see. And if you're not familiar with BPMN, you can simply use the container, the generic task container at the bottom of that list, or up at the top ribbon. So either way of working is possible. So just to sum up the benefits of dual view, it's an all-in-one tool now. It turns sequence into an all-in-one tool for BPM modeling and design, all in one interface. It provides business people with a familiar modeling environment and enables them to model the application without being confused with all the details of each and every activity and IT element. It gives the IT a great way to see the high-level design, what's meant, what the goals are, and what's the high-level goal of the application. And he can then be guided towards the optimal kind of work when he's designing out each of those steps. And it provides better communication and coordination between the two types of roles and fewer misunderstandings. And finally, more rapid development of an optimal solution. So that sums up the first half. We talked about dual view and IT and business harmony. Now let's take a look at some other great new features of Sequence version 7.10. We're going to take a look at workflow stages, generate documentation, process owner, form viewer web part, UI enhancements, and more. And I also recommend that we're not covering each and every single improvement in this version, but we do have notes on that in our release notes, which is available on our Knowledge Center at members.pnmsoft.com. And this webinar will be there as well in the webinar section of the Knowledge Center. The recording will be after the webinar is over. So let's go right now to see some of those excellent new features. Bear with me for a second.
The next feature that we'd like to talk about is the workflow stages feature. Now here we are in sequence flow time, and I'd like to open up a change request process. This is a process which enables an organization to place a change request. And in this process, there are actually logical stages to the process. There's a submit stage, then the process is assigned to someone, that person assesses the request, then decides, and then replies. So each of those steps are actually stages, and wouldn't it be nice to actually see these stages as the process goes through them, so that if you're an end user, you could see where you are right now, at which stage you're at right now. So here we are in the process, and as you can see, it looks similar to a regular sequence process, except that at the top, there's a new bar, which is a workflow stages bar. And here you can see these stages that we've created for this process. So if I were to start filling in this process, okay, with some test data, when I submit it, you can see now that it has actually progressed to the assigned stage. It's been assigned to another person in the organization who then completes the next steps, and the process continues to the next stage. Let's just take a look at that. And here we go. The process has now progressed to the assess stage. So we're just seeing that the process has been given more order, and that people who are working on the process have greater visibility on where it stands at any point of time. So let's now go to the App Studio and find out how we set up workflow stages.
Okay, so the first step that I want to do is to define the stage set. Here from the Properties pane, I will open the stage set definition window, and I will define the new stage set. I can use it in different workflows, the same stage set. And I will take this one. This is the one that we used in this workflow. I can add it. And I want to add a new stage. So I will add here, let's call it decide. And I can place it in the order that I wish. I will save it. That's it. So the next step is to add a set stage activity and to define it. So I can choose the stage from a list, for example, the decide stage, or to choose the stage based on an expression. So I will choose it from the list, click on finish, and now just add the activity in the place when you want to change the stage.
The next feature which we'd like to show you is called Generate Documentation. This is a great new feature which enables you to aggregate all the important data about a workflow into one place, and then to share that data with others. For example, with other people on your team, or with other teams, or with management. You can also generate documentation for 2 different versions of a workflow, and then compare those documents to see the differences. So to generate documentation for a workflow, in the Collaboration tab here, simply click Generate Documentation. And this generates a web page which includes a table of contents with all the activities in the workflow, as you can see. And for each activity, it includes that activity's views, its data model, its permissions, and its target activities. and so on and so forth. So for example, here I could click this activity, and that takes me to this section of the document, which has the views, the data model, the permissions, and the target activities. And now you can share this document with anyone who you like, and it's just a great way to aggregate all of the workflow data into one place. Something else that we've added in version 7.10 is Process Owner. Process Owner is a new workflow metadata property, which tells you who owns the process instance at any particular time. Of course, we already have the workflow property creator or created by, and now we have this additional ability to see who actually owns the process at any particular time, because someone could create the process, but then the ownership could move to someone else. So you can actually now see this new property in flow time in various grids of flow time. For example, here in the process page of this change request process, we see it here, the owned by column, showing who owns each process instance right now. So right now, these instances are owned by the farm administrator, but it could be any other person in the organization. And you can actually change who owns the process back in the App Studio. Let's see how we do that. So here we are in that process in the App Studio. And in order to change the owner at a certain point in the process, you can add a new activity in the server-side activities called built-in command. This activity enables you to execute a few different commands, and one of them is change owner. So let's define that. Here you select change process owner, click next, and here you simply have to define the new user's ID in this field and the workflow instance ID in this field. You click finish, and then you position it in the workflow where you want the ownership to change. In version 7.10, we've added a new web part to the flow time pages. It's called Form Viewer Web Part. This web part enables you to display a form to end users in flow time, and you can use that form to aggregate data, for example, for case management scenarios, or to display data based on customer ID. Here's how you would add that web part. Here I'm editing a flow time page. I simply click Add Web Part, and then in the categories, I select flow time, and here's the new web part, Form Viewer Web Part. And once I select this web part, I can then select which form to add to the page. As in every sequence version, we're constantly improving the user interface. So we also see here some UI improvements. For example, the permissions wizard has a new and improved UI, which enables you to more easily and efficiently assign permissions according to group, role, and user. You can also propagate permissions of a workflow down to its activities quite easily and delete permissions. So just a little enhanced UI there. You can also see our categories management UI, which we improved in a recent version, enabling you to add categories, add workflows to categories, and simply have a more orderly environment.
Okay, so that's kind of a summary of some of the top new features in version 7.10. So this, we've seen the dual view feature and how it can facilitate harmony between business and IT. We've seen some other great features like workflow stages, generate documentation, process owner, and so on. And now it's actually time to take some questions. We also welcome your feedback. You can email us questions and feedback to LES, it's myself, at PNMsoft.com, or to Vicky S at PNMsoft.com. And I just wanted to say again that you'll be able to watch this webinar within about a day from now up in our Knowledge Center. Just see if we have any questions. Vicky, do we have anything?
Yes, we have a question. Does the new process owner field means that the process creator field is gone?
Okay, so the answer to that question is no. The process creator field still exists. And we've just added the new field of process owner, just because it makes more sense to identify who owns a process instance at any point of time. Someone could create a process instance, but then go off to do some other kind of work and not really be in charge of it anymore. So it's a little more relevant to see who's actually the owner. But you can still access that metadata field of process creator, because that can also be quite relevant. Who kicked off the process. Okay, we are getting some more questions here. So hold on a second. Okay, so Vicky, what else do we have?
Okay, another one is, can I work with multiple levels in dual view?
Okay, so there the answer is yes also. It's not just two levels, the design view and, sorry, the business view and the design view. You can actually add another container within the design view and then drill down into that, and then you're in really a third level down, and even you can do a fourth level down. So you actually have to, and you can do that in order to better encapsulate functionality. For example, let's say in the second level, you have a kind of cluster of functionality around, let's say, integration with CRM. And you want to encapsulate that all into one container in order to make things more understandable for the rest of the design team. So you can then create a container there and then create a third level. So certainly the answer is yes. Okay, we do have one question where Joni is asking, can I set back to the old stage? And I believe so that's a question about workflow stages. If you have several stages in a process and it's kind of a linear sequential thing, let's say you want to go back to an old stage. And I believe the answer is yes, and we'll obviously try that out. But I believe the answer is quite simply to add another set stage activity and to set it to a previous stage. So that should be okay. We do have a few more questions here. I'm just going to see if we can take any more. Okay, one question we have is, can I have two or more outputs from a single container? And I believe there also the answer should be yes. The containers are actually, in a way, they don't actually really change the workflow model. It's just a different way of seeing the model. So if you saw in the containers, actually, when you open a container, you'll see a start and end activity that are already connected. And what that means is, if you add a container into the flow, but you don't actually insert or build any activities inside the container, the flow will continue. So we've kind of done it in a way that the flow is not in any way harmed or limited by the containers, but it's just more, the containers are providing a way to order the flow or to view the flow in a way that makes more sense for more people. Okay, are there any more questions? Okay, so we do have a couple more questions, and we will take them actually offline afterwards. I wanted to actually take the last couple minutes of this webinar to say that we're very happy today this week at PNMsoft, because we have a new website actually. So you're welcome to take a look at it. I will open it up here for a second on the screen. Just go to PNMsoft.com. And there's Sequence BPM software that can help you impact cost and profit with every change. So this is an exciting thing for PNMsoft, and you're welcome to check out the new website. Here are some of our customers here on the site, and we're very proud of the work that we do for our customers. And I also wanted to mention that we have a relatively new knowledge center that's at members.pnmsoft.com, and that's where you can access all of the information that you need on Sequence, how to use it, and this webinar, which will be in the webinars section hopefully within about a day. But it has great resources for navigating to help that you need on any aspect of Sequence. It's right here in the left-hand tree. You can easily get to what you need to get to, or you can search for it. And we also have a great new area, which is the community area. The Sequence community is it's what it sounds like. It's a community of Sequence users who can communicate with each other, ask and answer questions about Sequence. It's an active community, as you can see, and this is a great way to share knowledge, to gain knowledge, and we're going to be expanding and developing this area into the future. So I want to thank Vicky Sharoni for joining me for this webinar. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you, Eli.
And thank you all for joining, and we look forward to producing more great new features in Sequence, so stay tuned for more news coming up. And until next webinar, I'll sign off and thank you very much for participating.